Because I wanted to be the best. Uh, to me, when you want to be the best, you have to compete with the best. You have to learn from the best. You have to be around the best because you're going to learn from osmosis. And when I got there, I acted, I guess, as a spy. I wanted to know what they did to make themselves this behemoth of a university, of an institution. Football, I mean, sports wise as well as academics, they had it all, and it was right down the street. It was the school on the hill. I dreamed of going to it, and at a point didn't think I was good enough. But some former University of Michigan students who mentored me, they say, hey James, you have the capacity to do this if you really tried, if you really wanted to. So they believed in me before I believed in myself. But of course, that was always the school that you dreamed of. And when I knew that it was real, it could be a reality, I went for it. So I came to Ann Arbor in the summer, right after my high school graduation, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks after graduation. So yeah, my first days in Ann Arbor were, summer bridge program with CSP, and it was 200 something other people just like me coming 2 weeks after graduation from all over the world, really. So it was a great experience. I remember my mom and brothers and friends dropping me off, and I had a bunch of stuff. I didn't know what to bring, and I brought too much. But yeah, I remember going to class in the summer. But in the fall, it was a different story. I played football at that point, so it was a very different experience than it was in the summer.
Yeah, where did you live? Do you remember your roommates?
Yeah, I lived in Cousins. Yeah, I remember my first roommate in the summer. His name was Shane. He actually played basketball, and he transferred eventually to Oakland, and I think he eventually went pro. That was in the summer, and in the fall, it was one of my other football teammates who I lived with in South Quad. Yeah, so we lived in pretty good, convenient locations. But after that, I moved off campus. It was a lot less expensive to move off campus, down the street. And my brother, my identical twin brother, went to Eastern, and so did seven other of my other best friends who I grew up with. So I spent a lot of time between both campuses actually, but I think I got the best of both worlds because I had my childhood friends, 7 miles away, and I also got to experience this great academic and athletic institution, which I learned a lot from. Not at all. I switched majors, or I thought about different majors multiple times. I was good in chemistry and math in high school, so I thought I would go into majoring in chemistry and be a pharmaceutical, pharmacist or something like that. Until I took a math class. So I thought about, I said, hey, college is a place where you explore your interests. You take things, you do things to see if you don't want to do those things in the future. So that's what I did, and I thought about English, and I wrote one good paper and for one professor, and I thought I would write a similarly good paper for another professor, and it was a very different outcome. So I said, you know what, English is subjective. It depends on who's reading the writing to determine if it's good or not. So then I majored in sociology because I could talk about things that I wanted to talk about: race, religion, socioeconomic status, why people do things, why certain groups, went here or went there, and that's why I majored in sociology, because I can talk about it, I can read about it, I can write about it. At the end of the day, the world is about people, and I wanted to know people for who they were, so I can learn about myself ultimately. So when I played football, I was a busy student. I played football for the first 2.5 years that I was there, and then I decided to walk away because I was also involved in the community, very involved in the community. I got to Michigan through a group really called IMAD, Intellectual Minds Making a Difference. These were students that were mentoring me, actually not too far away from where we're sitting now, in this building. In high school, 11th grade, 12th grade, they said, hey, we're going to help you with the application, we're going to introduce you to people, and essentially recruit me to Michigan. And I did, and I was also a part of that program when I was in college, even when I played football. And I came to a point where I realized my purpose in life, and that was to help young people reach their full potential. Help people reach their full potential, and that was something I wanted to explore more, and that was something I didn't think that I could do at the same time while playing football. I was really an individual playing football. I can make $1 million maybe, but if I did go to the NFL, I might not have the time I wanted to give back to those who wish they could be in my position. So I was a busy student, probably by default. I mean, by fault, to a fault, rather. I was involved in a lot of organizations. I was a good student, but I could have tried, of course, a lot harder. Looking back, I didn't realize the importance of just school. I wanted to be involved. I mean, to me, I wanted to learn more. I learned more outside of the classroom than I did inside the classroom because I was in tune with the different policy decisions that were going on and the different climates that were happening on campus and issues that affected us all. So I was a good student, but a busy student, I guess. Sure. So one activity was the intellectual minds making a difference. I became the president of that organization, my junior, co-chair my junior and senior year, and I was also in an organization called Heads, and Heads was an organization that for Black males and people who identify as Black males to dialogue about issues affecting our community. It was kind of a debate club almost. I mean, it was we sought to dispel the myths and debunk the myths about what it was to be a Black male on the University of Michigan campus and in America. So I was a leader of that organization. There was also a couple of organizations, Black Celebratory, which was a graduation celebration for people who identify with the Black community. And it was and Black Welcome Week, another organization that welcomed younger students on campus to make them feel welcome and invited to the university that will be their home for the next 4 years. So we made it our a point to make sure that these students felt welcome and that these students felt like they had just as much of an opportunity to succeed there as anyone else.
Do you think that makes a huge difference coming onto campus, having somebody there to mentor you?
Without a doubt. I mean, I had that, and that's where I felt compelled and obligated to do the same thing. So I think that's extremely important for any young student coming to the university to have that community, to have that even that feeling, right? To see, to look around and see 4 or 5% people who look like you, who you might identify with, that might be striking to a lot of people who come from a place like Detroit that's majority Black. I think that's vitally important, and that's what I sought to create and try to cultivate and continue and perpetuate at the university. So in high school, all I wanted to do was go to the NFL. The only reason I really did good in school, my mom and my teachers would hate me saying this, but one of the main reasons I did well in school is because I knew a football coach would like a smart football player. So I wanted to do my very best in school because it was going to be easier for a coach to like me. I didn't want to be a knucklehead. I didn't want to have anything because I didn't have the talent necessarily. So I sent my highlight film to over 70 schools, and along with a package of my transcripts and my test scores, and I said, hey, I would love a scholarship for your university, and I didn't get any response from none of the schools, any of the schools that I sent the film and the package to, except for one who said, hey, we're not interested. I didn't send it to Michigan because I didn't think I was good enough. So, but I still had this dream of going to the NFL, and through this group, IMAD, that I was a part of, they introduced me to a guy that played football. I gave him my film. He said, hey, I think you're good enough to walk on here. He gave it to the coach, and he said, hey, James Logan, if you get admitted to the University of Michigan, you'll have a chance for a tryout. Make a long story short, I got admitted academically, tried out, made it, and 6 months later, after high school graduation, I was on my first plane ride to the Rose Bowl on a charter jet. So, and my second plane ride was to the Alamo Bowl on a charter jet. So the University of Michigan really opened doors and opened my eyes to a lot more that the world has to offer. So football was a crazy experience. It was the greatest experience of my life. I knew that if I could get through that experience, if I can make it to that level, I could do anything that I set my mind to. So that's one reason why I really tried hard. But it was brutal. It was grueling. And one reason was because not only do you spend so much time with it, but how you spend that time is running around, tearing down your body, hitting your body, tearing down your body to build it back up so it can build back up stronger, of course. But that takes a lot of energy, and you still have to go back and do homework and be a student. And for someone that did not have a scholarship, I had a part-time job as well. So it was very demanding on my time. I learned a lot from it. it was surreal when I would look down. On game day before we would go out to play a game, they would turn down the lights in the locker room, and we would just reflect. And at that time, it didn't seem real at all. But it was a special experience. I get goosebumps thinking about it now. It made me into the man I am today. I know that if I can go through that experience and learn how to be a winner, learn how to get better every day, learn how to learn from your mistakes every day, I know that I can carry that on in my life. And I'll do it in my business as a career coach. I have small children, so boys, and when they get a little bit bigger, I know I'm going to be going to every football game that we have away and home. So I know the time will come, and Michigan is not going anywhere. So hopefully I'm not going anywhere. So we'll be rooting for them for a long time. But yeah, I definitely want to be in. I'm always in tune with the coaches, and I go back for alumni football events and so on and so forth. So we're still in touch. I like to take a lot of breaks. I mean, I tried to pace myself when of course, we put all-nighters, like any college student. Of course, we felt stressed a lot, right? So, my reprieve, I guess, was just, having maybe a conversation about whatever was going on, in the community or about sports, about Michigan football. We had something called you talk about Detroit. There was a lot of Detroit, students there, and we had, when two or three of us would gather, a lot more people would gather, and then we would just talk, just keep on growing and growing and growing, and people would just get sucked in and lose track of time because it was a great feeling, man. We would come from similar places, and we would talk about things, and I was kind of like, all right, now it was almost a pep talk. Let's get back to work, right? Or let's study together, and and that worked sometimes, of course, but that was I don't know. I guess you managed your stress the best way you know how at the time. It was really, just making sure that, knowing that, someone was going through that same thing right next door or all around you, right? So it could have got worse. Some people couldn't handle the stress. Absolutely. So in 2006, of course, Prop 2 passed, right? So it was banned Affirmative Action. So we had, of course, big rallies there, and then when the president spoke on the diag, it was a picture of the audience, and it was like a Where's Waldo, and I was like somewhere in the front. But yeah, it was there were we were leaders in the black community, right? And it was a few of us that I guess took on that responsibility because people wanted us to in a big way. I remember there was a party where it was like what they call a pimps and hoes party that this the fraternity threw off campus, and they were depicting images of black people and mocking and appropriating culture and things like that. And we took it to the provost, and we all gathered around at the union that night to go to the party and take a few pictures, and it was peaceful. It was a peaceful protest for the most part. And a friend and I were talking, and people gathered around us to hear what we had to say. So that's when I knew it was like, all right, people want to listen to what we have to say. And so yeah, it was a lot of issues that on campus that we kind of thought about and didn't agree with and tried to do something about. But by and large, it was my mission was access, right? I wanted to make sure students had access. So leading the student organizations, I wanted to make sure students were prepared, regardless of what anyone can say or do or ban that might be in your favor. Now you have access, right? You know what it takes to maybe get here, and that's half the battle. So that was what more so I was committed to individually was educational access, trying to help students get prepared to come to a school like Michigan, to do well at a school like Michigan. But the big issue of the day was definitely the ban of affirmative action. Absolutely. Absolutely. You want me to share those? Way more involved.
Yeah.
Having a center is great, and it's a great look, right, when you drive down Woodward. But being more involved, the University of Michigan has a $8 billion endowment, right? And right down the street, 30 minutes down the road, 25 if you drive fast, you got one of the worst economies in the country. You got one of the worst educational landscapes in the country. You have one of the best public institutions in the country. 30 minutes apart, a highway apart, right? And it's a moral responsibility, it's a social responsibility on this public university that has taxpayers paying for some part of their revenue, and not even that, more students. They want to get a lot of students from Detroit, and I was responsible for doing that in a large part in my second role at the Ross School of Business. We could do way more. When you have donors give $200 million and to promote the university, and I get it. I get it. I understand why, but I think that it could be a lot more done in the community grassroots. I mean, I think that we could do a lot more to improve the relationship at Detroit. We're not aware of how a lot of young kids feel about Detroit. I mean, about Michigan nowadays. And that's a reason why we're not aware, because we're not talking to them. We're not having these conversations. We might bring them up for a couple of days and show them the beautiful campus, and then don't do it again until next year. It needs to be an ongoing relationship. That's one thing I try to do, and it's a lot of student groups doing a lot of great things, and I take nothing away from that. But as a university as a whole, it can be more coordinated effort, and it could be a lot done for this city. I mean, think about a Boston to a Harvard, and then of course the correlation is a lot closer because they're right next door. But that's one reason why it's a great city. It's because of the educational community. And Wayne State's doing a lot. I mean, Michigan State's down the street, but I think for university to have the status that it does and to maintain that idea that it's the leaders and the best, they have to capitalize on making sure that they take care of home.